village and the ones nearby. My mom was famous for her craft, but she only made glamour stools. Not only were they outrageously expensive, but they also came with strict conditions. She'd only make one for a woman who's been heartbroken by a man. I was lounging in a rocking chair, half asleep, when a tall, bulky woman came to our door. She wasn't exactly easy on the eyes. I knew immediately she was here to pick up her glamour stool. Just a few days ago, she had come by with her husband and another woman. When they left, she was the only one who walked out the door. To make a glamour stool, there must always be one man and two women involved. That was the rule. "Mom, someone's here for you," I called out. My mom appeared, smiling warmly. "Celine, your stool has been ready for a while. Come inside and try it out." Celine blushed and followed my mom upstairs. The door to the second floor slammed shut. I crept up the stairs quietly, pressing my ear against the door. My mom had been making glamour stools for as long as I could remember, but I had never actually seen one. Every time a customer came to pick one up, she would lock the door. Soon after, a woman's groan came from inside. A few moments passed, and I heard Celine's voice, softer and strangely more feminine than before. My curiosity was killing me. What did these stools really look like? But before I could think more about it, the sound stopped. I rushed back to the courtyard, pretending to water the plants as if nothing had happened. A few minutes later, Celine emerged, carrying a large box. Her face flushed. Was it just my imagination, or had she slimmed down a bit? Her skin seemed smoother, too. I knew that in a few days, Celine would fully transform into a beautiful woman. That was the magic of glamour stools. As she passed by, Celine paused, then turned to my mom. "When are you going to teach your daughter your craft?" My mom glanced at me, frowning slightly before letting out a sigh. "She's not ready yet. Once she has a boyfriend, I'll pass it on to her. I've been wanting to retire for a while now. If my mom taught me, I'd finally get to see what these mysterious stools looked like." Truth be told, I already had a boyfriend. We were madly in love, but my mom had always forbidden me from dating, so I never dared to tell her. The moment Celine left, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Mom, I actually have a boyfriend. Teach me how to make glamour stools," I said, barely able to contain my excitement. In my head, I was already planning it out. Each stool was sold for $200,000. If I could make 3 a month, I'd be set for life after just a few years. Then, I could retire with my boyfriend and live peacefully. I thought my mom would be thrilled to hear about my boyfriend, but to my surprise, her face clouded over with worry. The sadness in her eyes was unmistakable. "Have you slept with him?" she asked bluntly. My face turned scarlet. I never expected her to ask such a direct question, especially given how strict she'd always been with me. Part of me was scared she might blow up. "It's okay. You can tell me. You're an adult now. I won't punish you like I used to when you were younger." Embarrassed, I nodded. She smiled softly and ruffled my hair. Despite the smile, I could see the sadness still lingering in her eyes, as if she was holding back tears. "You've grown up. Bring your boyfriend over sometime. I want to meet him. If he passes my test, then you can start learning how to make glamour stools. The first one you craft will be for yourself." Her words left me pondering. I had never seen the stool my mom made for herself. I'd have to sneak into her room one of these days and see if I could find it. Feeling a surge of excitement, I called Zephyr Gray to tell him the news. He was thrilled and promised to come meet my mom as soon as his work let up. I couldn't help but spill the secret that once my mom passed the torch, I'd be making a fortune. Zephyr was even more excited than I was, dreaming up plans to buy a house in the city and bring my mom along to live with us. A month later, Zephyr came to visit my mom. I woke up early and waited at the intersection for him. When he finally showed up, his expression was dark and stormy. "Lyra, you say your family is loaded, but why do you live out here in the middle of nowhere? Are you messing with me?" My house was tucked behind the mountain, facing the shaded side, because glamour stools were need to be made in a dimly lit environment. From where we were now, we couldn't see the big villa. I linked my arm with Zephyr's, trying to lighten the mood. "Just wait a little longer, and you'll see my house. I promise. You won't be disappointed." He gave me a skeptical look. "I'll take your word for it. But if you're lying, I'm out of here." I tightened my grip on his arm. Even though he was the one who pursued me first, I genuinely liked him. His charming features had me completely enchanted. As we rounded the bend, Zephyr's eyes widened when he finally spotted the grand villa nestled against the hillside. "Lyra, that big villa can't be yours, right?" "Yep. I told you my family is super rich." He glanced nervously at the modest gift he was holding. "Do you think this is too cheap?" I looked at the discounted flowers he picked up from the supermarket and smiled. "Not at all. As long as I like it, my mom won't care." In the distance, I spotted my mom standing at the door. Zephyr's eyes lit up in awe. "Lyra, how come I've never heard you mention your sister?" Anyone who met my mom usually thought she was my sister, with her smooth skin and no wrinkles, plus a figure that turned heads. It was no wonder no guy could resist being captivated by her. Zephyr looked down, wiping his mouth as he chuckled. "Your mom is gorgeous. How come you don't look anything like her?" I had asked my mom that same question when I was younger. I was always the awkward one, overweight, short, and battling acne through my teenage years. Now that the acne had cleared up, I was left with scars. The customers who visited the shop would often tease my mom, joking that I must have been adopted. She would always insist that I looked just like her and that once I mastered making glamour stools, I'd be even prettier. That was why I was so eager to learn how to make those stools. I dreamed of the day I would transform into a goddess. I even wondered if the ingredients had some magic beauty powers. My mom says once I start making glamour stools, I'll get prettier. Zephyr playfully pinched the fat on my belly and smirked. Let's hope so. He walked over to my mom and greeted her respectfully. My mom extended her hand with grace. Hello, Zephyr. I'm Lyra's mom. Zephyr looked surprised but shook her hand, not wanting to let go. It wasn't until I cleared my throat that he finally released her hand, albeit reluctantly. I shot him an annoyed look and sulked into the house. My mom seemed delighted and hurried after me, whispering, "The ingredients are really good." I was a bit confused by her comment but didn't get the chance to ask her about it. At dinner, my mom started asking about Zephyr's family, and the more she heard, the happier she got. When Zephyr was 18, he lost both his parents in an accident, so now he was on his own, but he had a decent job, and honestly, I was pretty satisfied with that. He was good-looking and educated, and I felt lucky to be with someone like him. After a few drinks, Zephyr got a bit emotional, hugging my mom and saying that once we got married, he'd move in with her since we'd be family. Just as we were all enjoying the moment, Celine walked in. I knew she would look good, but I was still taken aback. With her small, cute face, rosy lips, and curves that would make any star jealous, she was stunning. Celine brought a few boxes of fancy wine to thank my mom. I'd seen this kind of thing before, so I just focused on peeling shrimp for Zephyr. His eyes were fixed on those boxes of wine. While Celine and my mom chatted, she sauntered over and playfully touched Zephyr's face. Wow, this guy's really handsome. Your daughter has great taste. Zephyr didn't pull away and just grinned like a fool. Then, Celine mischievously gave him a playful pinch, making his face turn crimson. He still didn't object, just kept smiling away. With a teasing grin, Celine said to my mom, "Once your daughter nails making those glamour stools, she'll be so lucky. She'll end up even prettier than I am." I was fuming, so I slammed my fork down and stormed upstairs. I thought Zephyr would come after me to cheer me up, but to my surprise, he decided to walk Celine out instead. My mom's face fell instantly, and she sent Zephyr back, insisting on seeing Celine off herself. Later that night, after switching off the lights, Zephyr finished up quickly and fell asleep. I touched my face, thinking that once I got prettier, he'd turn on the lights just to look at me. Lying in bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Eventually, I went up to the rooftop to gaze at the stars. Suddenly, a soft, feminine voice drifted into my ears, breaking the quiet. Our neighbor lived far away, so this voice had to be my mom's. Could it be that she was dating someone? I could understand. She had been single for years, and it must have been tough for her. Still, I was curious about which guy had managed to win over this high-maintenance woman. I quietly crept over to my mom's bedroom window. Just one peek, and I was left speechless. I caught sight of my mom perched on a peculiar stool, her movements strange and almost ritualistic. After what felt like ages, she stood up and fetched a basin of water, meticulously cleaning the glamour stool while talking to herself. Then, out of nowhere, I heard my dad's name slip from her lips. Once, when she'd been drinking, she'd called out his name. I had asked her what he was like, but that had sent her into a rage. She told me never to mention him again, and I took that to heart. Since then, the topic had been off limits. Once my mom finished washing the stool, she carefully wrapped it up and tucked it away in the safe. I dashed back to my room, my mind racing. Could that be her first glamour stool? She always said that a maker's first glamour stool was made for themselves. But I had a boyfriend now, so I didn't need one. I planned to sell my stool and travel with Zephyr instead. The next morning, my mom pulled me into her bedroom and opened her safe. "You've always wanted to see what a glamour stool looks like, right? Today's your day." I struggled to contain my excitement as I followed her inside. She gently lifted a large box from the safe, and when she opened it, a rich, enticing fragrance wafted out, enveloping me. It was the same stool she had sat on last night. The stool had an old-world charm, but its material was unusual. Definitely not wood or stone. It was almost like skin. Just the thought gave me goosebumps. I was about to sit on it when my mom suddenly pushed me aside. "This is my glamour stool. Only I can sit on it. You'll have your own one day." If I couldn't sit on it, touching it should be okay, right? But as I reached out, my mom blocked my hand again. "You can only touch the sides, not the top." I nodded, feeling the soft surface beneath my fingers. Oddly enough, it felt alive, almost as if the stool was breathing and welcoming my touch. When I pulled my hand away, it seemed to lean toward me, as if it craved more contact. Seeing I was finished, my mom crouched down, cradling the stool as she closed her eyes and rubbed it lovingly. "Cedric, do you see? Your daughter has grown up. She's not like you. She's like me." I turned to the mirror, scrutinizing my features. None of them resembled my mom's. "She has a boyfriend now. You'll meet him soon. He's even more handsome and accomplished than you. Lyra will definitely create the best glamour stool in the world." As I listened, an unsettling feeling washed over me, making me think of the stool as a stand-in for my dad. My mom filled another basin with water and began washing the stool with a tender touch. "Lyra, remember to clean the stool thoroughly after using it." I nodded, trying to absorb every word. Then she handed me an old, worn leather book. "The methods for making the stool are all in here. You can look through it yourself." I opened the book, took one glance, and screamed, flinging it away in shock. I stared at my mom, covering my mouth in disbelief as I stumbled outside and collapsed beside the flower bed, my stomach churning violently as I began to vomit. nearly bringing up my bile. My past life, my mom and dad divorced. My sister went with my wealthy mother, while I stayed with my broke father. Mom remarried an abusive man, and her life only got worse. Meanwhile, dad, after learning the hard way, started his own business. My sister grew so jealous she stabbed me in the stomach. Then, when we opened our eyes again, we found ourselves back on the day mom and dad signed their divorce papers at the Civil Affairs Bureau. This time, my sister beat me to it, saying, I love my daddy and want to stay with him, but I'm relieved. I don't want to hide anymore. Mia clung to Oliver's arm, her voice dripping with sweetness. Daddy, please let me come with you. I love you the most, and I'm not scared of hard work at all. Hearing Mia, who had always been spoiled and reckless, say something like that genuinely touched Oliver. He completely overlooked the scowl on Fiona's face beside him. No way. Mia will suffer if she goes with you. I have to take her away. Fiona stepped in, determined to put a stop to this. Mia might suffer with Oliver, but what about me? It felt like I was being treated like a ghost, invisible, as my parents fought tooth and nail for Mia's custody. In the end, Mia's stubbornness won out, and when she insisted on going with Oliver, Fiona reluctantly settled for me instead. I climbed into the luxury car belonging to my stepfather, Logan Moore, while Mia bounced away, hand in hand with Oliver. Before they left, she shot me a look filled with arrogance. I didn't care. After all, Fiona was well off now, while Oliver was scraping by. In my past life, Oliver had to dodge debt collectors, dragging me along as we hid from one place to another. I could never focus on my studies. His business failures and Fiona's departure had hit him hard. He spiraled into self-destruction, drowning his sorrows in cheap booze in a rundown apartment, neglecting everything else. At school, I was a top student, but I couldn't afford tuition and had to care for him, which forced me to drop out early and fend for myself. Mia, born from the same womb, was so much luckier. She was beautiful and knew how to win our parents' affection, making them adore her. They always said I should act like an older sister and let Mia take the lead. Even after the divorce, it was clear they only wanted her. But in this life, she chose Oliver, giving him a moment of triumph over Fiona. As we drove, Fiona began to berate me, saying, "You've always been plain and unlikable. Now that we're living with Logan, don't embarrass me." It was quite the laugh. Who would ever say such things about their own daughter in front of others? But I shrugged it off as the car rolled into the affluent neighborhood. I knew Logan was wealthy in my past life, but I hadn't realized just how wealthy. He enrolled me in the best private school in the city, complete with a dedicated driver for my daily commute. Determined to make up for my previous life's missed opportunities, I threw myself into my studies. I worked hard and consistently ranked in the top 3 of my class. Fiona, who had previously ignored me, suddenly took an interest when it came to attending parent-teacher meetings. Her presence was met with envy from other parents and praise from teachers. With Logan having no children of his own, I found myself quite comfortable in this new home. "Mr. Moore, I'd like to study abroad," I told him one day. Before Logan could respond, Fiona was already jumping in, flustered. "What do you mean, study abroad? You're just a kid. Don't think just because you're doing well academically that you can do whatever you want." I learned that sometimes one could genuinely dislike someone without any reason, even if she was my own mother. Logan wasn't the unpredictable tyrant Fiona and Mia had painted him to be. In fact, I found him to be quite intelligent, though proud and sensitive about his ego. The tension between him and Fiona surfaced shortly after we moved in. Fiona was nothing more than a pretty face with no brains. If anything, she and Oliver were a match made in heaven. Oliver was a classic rich kid who had his head in the clouds and muscles over his brains. He had married Fiona thanks to a mix of recklessness and money. When my grandparents were alive, he had a safety net, but once they passed, Oliver's so-called friends led him into risky investments, wiping out everything he had inherited. Fiona wasted no time finding a new partner and divorced him. My plans to study abroad were thwarted by Fiona's interference, but with my current grades, I could easily get into a prestigious university right here at home. One day, Mia arrived, and our housekeeper, Amanda West, greeted her with a bright smile. "Mia's here, Ms. West. Is my mom home?" Mia asked, her voice laced with expectation. Amanda replied, "Your mom went shopping, but your sister is upstairs studying." I could hear Mia's footsteps approaching my room. Without knocking, she swung open my door. "Megan, what are you pretending for? No one's home. You're working so hard for what?" She scoffed, striding over to snatch my books away. It was amusing how Mia, raised by Oliver, still made regular visits to this house, always seeking money, jewelry, and clothes from Fiona. Each time she left, the car was packed to the brim. Yet, come the next month, she'd be wearing tattered clothes again. All the good stuff had gone straight to Oliver, who is now not just a drunk but a gambler as well. Fiona hated to see Mia struggling under Oliver's roof. She had even discussed with Logan the possibility of bringing Mia to live with us permanently. Logan had agreed, but Oliver wasn't about to let that happen. He was still using Mia to squeeze money and gifts out of Fiona to support his own lifestyle. "Studying has made you dumb. What's the point of all those books? You'll never be as pretty as me. Even mom and dad don't like you. You think you're living the good life? Just remember, I'm the one who's letting you enjoy it. Don't get too comfortable. It won't last long," Mia said, rummaging through my belongings as if they were hers. It was true. This room had once been her chamber in the past life. She tossed things around carelessly. "Tisk, TSK, TSK. You really don't know how to enjoy life, do you? What's all this junk? You just sit here with your stupid books all day." I ignored her, allowing her to wreak havoc in my space. "Mia, is that my precious daughter Mia?" Fiona's voice chimed in as she entered. Fiona Fiona's eyes widened at the sight of my room turned upside down. What are you even looking for here? Come on, let's go to my room. I just bought a bunch of new clothes and jewelry. Take whatever you like. Without glancing at me, Fiona grabbed Mia's hand and whisked her away. Not a single word of concern for me passed her lips. Amanda entered, balancing a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. She surveyed the mess and started tidying up with practiced ease. I've never seen such a biased mother before, but it didn't matter. Mia's good fortune wouldn't last forever. Downstairs, a heated argument erupted. Unbelievable. All of your things cost me money, but you still have the nerve to keep a boy toy on the side. Logan's voice thundered, his temper flaring. A sharp slap rang out as he struck Fiona across the face. Mia rushed forward to intervene, but Logan shoved her down to the floor in his rage. I haven't even mentioned your precious daughter. Didn't you agree to split the girls evenly? Why is she always running over to my place? Every time she comes, half my stuff goes missing. Fiona retorted defiantly. My daughter is taking what's rightfully mine. Why should you care? Logan snapped. Yours? Look at you. Everything on your body was bought with my money, and now you expect me to support your entire family? Logan, how dare you say that? If it weren't for your infertility, I wouldn't be in this mess. Fiona's words hit like a punch to the gut, sending Logan into a blind rage. He lost all reason and began tossing Fiona's belongings out the window. She tried to stop him but was shoved to the ground in the process. No one dared to step in. Even Mia cowered in the corner, too afraid to move. Logan had married Fiona for her beauty and her 2 children. After the wedding, he focused on raising me, almost as if he were grooming me to be his successor. But in my past life, Fiona had taken full advantage of that, squandering Logan's wealth without a second thought. Mia might have been beautiful, but her mind was as empty as a balloon after a party. It was one thing to be greedy, but Fiona and Mia took it to a whole new level with their simplistic thinking. Fiona had her affairs, and Mia, with no shame at all, bragged about how everything Logan owned would eventually belong to her. Word of her arrogance soon reached Logan's ears, and it was no surprise. Anyone would feel uncomfortable knowing someone was eyeing their fortune while they were still alive. After, Mia was not his biological daughter. That was a distance between them that was hard to bridge. In a decisive move, Logan brought his nephew to stay with him, grooming his nephew as his successor while kicking Fiona and Mia out of the house. This time around, Fiona faced the same fate, but Logan had no intention of sending me away. Megan, you'd be better off with me than with your clueless mother, he said, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of relief. All my previous efforts hadn't been in vain. Logan recognized my ambition, intelligence, and vision. I made it a point to put him first in everything, consulting him on any significant decisions. I even confided in him about wanting to take his surname, something my fashion-obsessed, brainless mother would never understand or care about. Fiona refused to leave, insisting she would die in that house. She underestimated Logan, thinking he was just another weak-willed rich kid like Oliver, but Logan was a self-made man in the business world, not easily fooled by her petty tricks. Amanda, go to the bedroom and pack a few of her things, Logan instructed, summoning security. Just like that, Fiona and Mia were tossed out. As Logan passed my room, he gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. Megan, focus on your studies. Adult matters don't concern you. I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. Foolish people never changed. No matter how many times they lived through the same story, my life continued unaffected. Fiona, desperate, tried to persuade me to intercede with Logan on her behalf. Of course, I wouldn't entertain that thought. She bombarded me with calls, hurling the most vile insults she could muster. Without Fiona's support, Mia's life took a turn for the worse. Her poor grades and lack of interest in school caught Oliver's attention, and he decided to pull her out entirely, drowning in his own debts. Meanwhile, I was laser-focused on preparing for the SAT. Logan was swamped with work and barely home. Not long after, on my way to school, I was cornered by a gang of thugs. That day, our family car was in for maintenance, so I was walking home alone. Just outside the school gates, a guy called out to me, "Are you Megan?" Before I could respond, he clamped a hand over my mouth and dragged me toward an abandoned warehouse. I felt a sharp kick to my stomach, which knocked the wind out of me, leaving me gasping on the ground. They didn't say a word. They just started hitting me, Mia sneered, stepping forward with an air of superiority. "Hey, Megan, how's life in that fancy mansion?" The ***ch. I'm honestly impressed. That old man treats you like a queen. And look at mom, she's out on her ass. You're still in that house. Huh, I'm dying to know what tricks you're using. Is it your so-called charm or just your plain Jane looks? Honey, I am so sorry. I don't have the rights to this story anymore, but if you like it, you can search for the passphrase 505572 in the Snack Short app to read more.
Man's back, and I knew too well that it was my husband's. She posted it with a caption, "Having a man who loves me makes me feel so safe." The comments were all from Simon's buddies. Ryder Sterling, "That back doesn't look like your husband's, Dash Harper, "Nice one, you've won back your goddess, Landon Lawson, so the sperm's from this guy. Congrats, my husband indirectly scolded them." Simon Winslow, "Come on, boys, I'm just helping out. You trying to drive my wife away, As soon as he posted that, his buddies liked his comment and stopped commenting, except Ryder. her. Come on, man, don't act like that. She's not worth it. Just ditch her. You've been with Sylvia since high school, and everyone knows you can't let her go. Stop fooling yourself. Ryder had been Simon's best friend forever and never liked me. He always thought I wasn't perfect for his buddy, saying I wasn't as pretty as Sylvia. To him, I just didn't measure up. I just let Ryder say what he wanted for Simon's sake, but I could speak for myself now that I was considering divorce. I typed something and commented, "Don't worry. That's gonna happen soon." Then, I picked 2 photos, my pregnancy ultrasound and my abortion certificate, and captioned it, "Finally letting go." Chapter 2, Grace's POV. Only a few seconds after I posted the photos, my Facebook notification exploded. I looked at the likes and comments one by one, and not one was from Simon's buddies. I doubted they hadn't seen my post yet. They must have called him to toast to their little celebration. Before long, my phone was buzzing non-stop. My parents and in-laws were all trying to reach me. Simon was blowing up my phone too, but I ignored it. I just shot a text to Mom, "I'll be home later. I'll fill you in when I get there." I packed up my things quickly, and just as I was about to leave, I spotted Simon pulling into the driveway. He sprinted out of the car and marched right over. "Grace, what's going on? You aborted our baby just 'cause I donated my sperm?" I just stared at him blankly. "And why didn't you ever mention you were pregnant?" His barrage of questions made me feel nauseous, but I wasn't in the mood to argue. I brushed past his anger, grabbed my suitcase, and headed out the door. But he grabbed me by my arm, his grip firm. "Is this some kind of joke to you? I told you I'd cut ties with her after the baby. I've made sacrifices for you. What more do you want me to do?" His shameless words hit me, and I couldn't hold back any longer. I slapped him. "Stop messing up your real relationship for me. You know what? Your best friend's right. Just do what you really want. I'm not worth it, right? You should find someone better. I sent you the divorce papers. Don't forget to sign them ASAP." With that, I broke free and stormed out. I could hear him yell a threat after me, "Stay, or I won't accept you when you come back." Come back? Not a chance. Honestly, I should be thanking him. This made me realize I'd be better off without him. When I got home, my parents immediately cornered me with questions about the divorce. Mom's eyes were red. She'd definitely been crying. When I told them about Simon's sperm donation situation, Mom pulled me in for a tight hug, crying, "I told you he'd only hurt you." Dad was quiet for a moment, then finally said, "Good riddance." I sulked for a bit and finally let the tears flow, sobbing on my mom's shoulder. They never thought highly of Simon, convinced he didn't truly love me. I had pursued him for 7 years, and when he finally agreed to date me, I ignored everyone's warnings, thinking I could eventually make him love me. Obviously, that didn't work out, and here we were, facing divorce. I learned the hard way that you can't force a relationship. A decade of my youth taught me that lesson. I waited ages, but Simon still hadn't signed the divorce papers. Just after I threatened to take him to court, he finally texted me, "I'll come by tomorrow to pick you up and let Ryder and the others apologize. Stop making a fuss. I'm exhausted. Don't make me pick between you and Sylvia. I'm sorry, but can't you see my perspective?" I said I'd distance myself from her, but she's pregnant and needs support. You see, her husband's not around. He acted like he was torn between Sylvia and me just because she was pregnant, but time and again, he proved he always chose her. On our wedding day, what did he do? He fucking chose to keep his ex-girlfriend company when she was not on good terms with her husband. On our anniversary, he left me to be with her because she was panicking during a thunderstorm. On my birthday, she let him know she got promoted, and he celebrated with her instead. Every holiday, he tried to keep things fair by getting gifts for me and for his ex. I'd talked about this to him a bunch, but he always said it wouldn't happen again. Yet here we were, and every time it did, he'd call me petty. Honestly, the best moment we ever had was when he proposed. That night was wild. He popped the question way up in Sky Spire Peak, where the stars felt so close I could almost reach them. Under that blanket of stars, he slipped a shiny ring on my finger, looking all serious. His vows were really heartfelt. It was the most serious I'd ever seen him, and he went all out for that moment. When Simon noticed I hadn't replied, he called me right up. "Darling, I booked a restaurant for everyone to apologize to you. Please don't make a scene." I asked casually, "Is Sylvia coming?" "Of course," he said. "Fine then," I replied. "I'll come with you tomorrow. If they wanted to apologize, it better be not just to me." The next day, when Simon picked me up, Sylvia was in the passenger seat, giving me an awkward smile. "Sorry, Grace. I get car sick. Must be the pregnancy, you know, so I had to sit here." I just faintly smiled back, sure. When I hadn't considered divorce, I might have felt weird about my husband's ex sitting next to him. But now, whatever they did just stopped bothering me. It was funny, if it was Simon's car, she had to sit next to him. But in others' cars, she never complained about being car sick and would take any seat. By the time we got to dinner, all of Simon's buddies were there, waiting for us. Ryder came over first, greeted me, and pulled me to sit next to him. "Grace, I'll be the first to apologize." His tone wasn't exactly sincere, it felt kind of threatening. Once everyone was seated, Ryder poured me a drink and said he'd take a shot to make up for his mistakes. He raised his glass, downed it, and started his apology. "Well, I don't usually think before I speak, so don't take it to heart. Honestly, I never thought you were good enough for my buddy, but he wants to be with you, so I'm here to suppo."